Today, we're going to dive into a sermon that takes a really different look at one of history's most infamous stories. It suggests that this legendary act of betrayal wasn't about pure evil, but actually came from a place that's, well, logical, almost too human.
So, let me just ask you this. What if history's greatest betrayal was actually a logical choice? I know, it sounds wild, right? But what if the story of Judas isn't just about good versus evil, but about two totally different ways of seeing the world crashing into each other? That's exactly what we're going to unpack. Okay, so the sermon we're digging into here totally reframes Judas. Forget the one-dimensional, mustache-twirling villain. Instead, picture him as an avatar for a part of all of us. That part that's always calculating, always weighing the pros and cons. And this is really the key. The sermon argues that Judas was basically running a constant cost-benefit analysis in his head. You know the voice. Is this a win or a loss for me? Is this practical? Is this a waste of time and energy? It's that super rational, maybe even cynical mindset that the sermon says is the absolute key to unlocking this whole story. And right there, you've got the central conflict. It's a total clash of worldviews. On one side, you've got Judas's practical, what's the bottom line kind of thinking. And on the other side, you have a logic of devotion that frankly makes no sense by those rules. Yeah, look at this. It lays it out so clearly. Judas's logic, it's all about being practical, efficient, avoiding any kind of loss. But then you look at the logic of faith presented here. It's called wasteful, sacrificial. It's not about what something costs. It's about giving everything you have. They're polar opposites. And the sermon gives us this perfect example to chew on. This woman, Mary, pours out a jar of perfume worth a year's wages on Jesus' feet. And what does Judas do? He immediately crunches the numbers. And you know what? His objection sounds completely reasonable, right? Whoa, hold on. Why this waste? We could have sold that and given the money to the poor. That is his calculating brain firing on all cylinders. Now, to show the other side of the coin, the sermon points to the story of the poor widow. She puts in 2 tiny coins, worth basically nothing. By any logical, practical standard, her gift is meaningless, but she's held up as the ultimate example of generosity. Why? Because she didn't give what was extra. She gave everything. It's an act that just completely breaks the rules of practical math. Okay, so we've got these 2 clashing worldviews on the table. And now the sermon takes us right into the heart of the story, the Last Supper. And let me tell you, the picture it paints is not the calm, quiet, holy scene you see in paintings. It's messy, it's tense, it's full of very, very human egos. I mean, get this. The sermon points out that even here, at this incredibly sacred meal, the disciples are, well, they're being guys. They're literally arguing about who's the greatest, who's going to be second in command. They're so wrapped up in their own status and ambition that they're completely missing the massive significance of what's about to happen. And right in the middle of all this petty squabbling, Jesus just drops a bomb. He looks at them and says, "One of you is going to betray me." Can you imagine? The whole mood just shatters. Instantly, all that arguing about who's the best turns into suspicion, fear, looking around the table, wondering, is it him? Is it me? So they all start asking, who is it? Who? And Jesus doesn't stand up and point and yell. No. He does something really intimate, a gesture of friendship from that time. He dips a piece of bread and hands it over. And here's the crazy part. It was such a normal, quiet thing to do that nobody else at the table even got what it meant. It was a silent message, understood by only 2 people in that room, Jesus and Judas. And this right here, this is what the sermon calls the point of no return. The choice is made. The deal is sealed in that quiet moment. And Jesus doesn't argue or plead. He just says, what you're going to do it quickly. It's done. The path is set. All right, now we get to the real climax of this whole interpretation. And it's not the betrayal itself, not the kiss in the garden. No, the sermon focuses on something much smaller, much quieter. The moment Judas gets up and walks out of that room, and what that simple act really means. The entire argument we've been building, it all hinges on a single, short, incredibly powerful observation. He went out, and it was night. 4 simple words. And according to this sermon, that's not just a weather report. That's not just telling us it was dark outside. This is the whole point. This is a profound spiritual statement. So here's the connection the sermon makes. Think about it. Judas is physically leaving the presence of the man who called himself the light of the world. So when he walks out that door, he's not just stepping into the dark street.
He's choosing darkness. He is walking into the night, spiritually. His whole being, in that moment, becomes night.
So, okay, what do we do with all this? The point of the sermon isn't just to give us a new take on Judas. It's actually meant to be an invitation for us, right now, based on this powerful idea of light and darkness.
And this right here is the central message. Believe in the light while you have the light. It's basically an urgent plea to pay attention, to see the light for what it is while it's right in front of you, and to make the choice to stay there, even when it feels hard or when your logical brain is telling you it's a waste.
And this is the kicker. This is the big difference. Let's be real. The other disciples were a hot mess. They were flawed, they were self-centered, they were cowards who would all run away later. But, and this is the sermon's big but, they stayed in the room. They stayed near the light, even with all their junk exposed. Judas is the one who, when the light hit him, ran. He chose to flee into the night.
So the sermon boils it all down to this simple, three-step invitation. First, just be honest about your own flaws. We all have them. Second, when you feel exposed, don't do what Judas did. Don't run into the night of your own self-interest and calculations. And third, make the active choice to stay in the light, the place of truth and grace, even and especially when it feels uncomfortable.
And that's really the question this whole thing leaves us with, isn't it? It's asking us to look at our own lives. When that calculating part of our brain kicks in, the part that's all about efficiency, self-protection, and cost-benefit, what light are we in danger of leaving? What truth, what relationship, what moment of grace do we risk walking away from when we choose our own personal night?